today's video is going to be showing you some quick tips and ideas for using a word die, something that most of us, if not all of us with a die cutting machine, will have in our stash. I'm using one here. This is by Crafter's Companion and it says hello. It actually has the word die and it does have a little frame that fits around it in the pack. I will probably just be using the word. It depends on the time. We may get round to an idea for using the frame as well, but this is just about words because I know that some people just have dies that they don't have a little backing frame. It's just the word. So the techniques that I'm going to be showing you today should work with most, if not all of those. And also, if you're anything like me, you have lots and lots of offcuts of coloured card and paper. And, you know, yes, we do hoard these and we don't like to throw them away because you always think, oh, that little bit's going to come in handy. So today we'll be using up lots and lots of those little pieces just to create a stash of cards that sort of say hello, just quick and easy ideas. Now, before I start with that, I'm just going to share a tip that I use for storing some of these. I mean, obviously I have boxes with A4 sheets and 12 by 12 sheets of card, but when I get down to these little offcuts, you know, when you've been doing things and you've got bits left over, I keep them in little individual pockets according to colours. So here I've got like blues and greens in this one, reds and pinks and purples in this one, yellows and orange and brown in this one, black and white and grey. This one is always full because obviously, you know, crafters will use a lot of black and white card. And then I've got offcuts of metallics in here, so gold and silver, and a couple of pearlescent in there as well. And I do find that this works quite well for me. You know, sometimes you think, oh, I just need a little bit of blue card, and instead of having to rummage through a whole box, I know there's going to be a piece in here. And when I've been, you know, doing a bit of crafting and I've got all my odds and ends left over by the side of my guillotine, it is really quick and easy to just pop the appropriate colour into a folder, and then I can find what I need for next time. Little tiny pieces, you know, just a couple of centimetres, they go in the bin. They're never going to get used. It's, you know, just get rid of them. Anything that won't fit in these goes in a basket. So there I'll find sizes, you know, if I want to make myself a card blank or something, there'll be larger pieces in a basket. But for bits and pieces, those little scraps, perfect for die cuts, perfect for matting and layering. I find this works quite well for me. So these are some little Kaisercraft Ziploc bags, but you could just use Ziploc bags from, you know, for kitchen storage, that type of thing. Or just find yourself a little expanding wallet folder and maybe organise a pocket for each colourway. So that's just a little tip for storage before we start. So I'll just move these out of the way and then we'll get on. So as I say, all of my cards today are going to be using this die. I think it was £4.99 here in the UK. They're not expensive, these Crafter's Companion dies. But I just thought it was nice. Hello is a nice sort of sentiment just to pop on a card to enclose with all sorts of things. But as you say, if you've got a happy birthday or with love, best wishes, all sorts of words, you know, you can adapt these ideas. So I'm going to start off with one of the simplest things, which is just to die cut the word in a selection of colours and just mat it onto the front of a card. So for this, I've chosen some shades of pink to create like an ombre effect. I've got myself a little card blank. I've die cut a red mat. This is just using a Sue Wilson die. It's like a stitched rectangle. And I'm just going to repeat this word on the card front, and by choosing 3 shades to create, to say this like an ombre effect, it just creates a nice cohesive design. And as I say, all of the ideas today are all about being quick and easy, and I've die cut all of these. I've just used my Big Shot machine, but it won't take, you know, it won't take you more than a couple of minutes to actually create a card like this. So just using, as ever, Cosmic Shimmer glue in a fine tipped applicator bottle. I know a lot of you ask about these. And if you look in the description below, I do have links to my Amazon store, both for US and UK viewers. And I believe that I do have a link for a 3-pack of these in each of those stores. But it's the glue is really good. It dries clear. You only need a little bit. And the precision tip on these bottles is great for little die cuts. But as you can see, you don't need to completely coat the back. As long as you've got sort of bits that are going to stick out with a bit of glue on, just so that they're held down. That's all that you need. So that's those glued onto there. Now I'm just going to take some foam tape, pop that on the back of this piece of red card. Just remove all the backing and pop that up onto the card front. You know, quick and easy, really effective. You can stamp a little sentiment inside if you want to, but there's card number 1. Well, following on from that, I thought that was quite a nice card. You know, it's colourful, it's female. What if we want to send something a little bit simpler, something that's maybe more suited to a man, or maybe something that's just, you want something quite subdued, classic. So I thought I'd go for a combination of this charcoal grey and a mustard yellow. So before I begin, I'm just going to mat these onto my card front. This time I'm using a tall card. This is a DL card blank. So pop that on there. And this time I've die cut my word 5 times. And 4 of them I've cut in the same colour grey as our background. Because although it's, you know, it's the same colour and we're going to stick this down, you still see it, but it's a much more subtle effect there in the background. And then we'll just highlight it with 1 die cut in a contrasting colour. So once again, I'm just going to glue these down in place. And that creates a really nice, almost an embossed effect. It looks as though the words are embossed in the background with them being the exact same colour. And then that one just in a contrast just pops from the front. Again, another quick and easy card, really simple to do. Next up, I'm going to layer up together lots of different die cuts. So here I've got 7 die cuts. I've got the colours of the rainbow and a white one. And I'm going to layer them all up on top of each other, ever so slightly offset. So we just get the shadow of the different colours underneath each one. So I'm just going to glue these all together and then we'll be back to pop them onto the front of a card. And so we're sticking them together so that just the slightest bit of the colour below is going to show. So there I've got all my colours of the rainbow layered up with my white one on top. And this just going to again use a fairly simple card. I've got a square card blank here. And I'm just going to mat on some black cardstock. And a piece of white cardstock. And I thought we'd have a nice pop of the yellow. It's a lovely bright colour and it contrasts nicely with that black. And then I've just die cut a circle from white. Now you could raise this up on foam pads if you wanted to, but I'm just going to pop that on there. And then finish by popping our sentiment in the middle. Just gluing that in place. And there's card number 3. Really like the effect of that. We've got some nice depth in there. I like the coloured shadow effect that we've got. Next up, I've die cut my word from some black cardstock, and I'm going to be matting this onto black and a bit of silver. But before I do that, I want to emboss this with some clear embossing powder to give it a nice shiny and raised effect. So I've got a scrap of card, and I've got some clear embossing ink and some clear embossing powder as well. So I'm just going to press the die cut directly onto my embossing ink pad. Then popping that down on my scrap of paper. Then just sprinkle on some of the clear embossing powder. And then you might find it easiest just to hold with some tweezers. I'm just going to emboss with my heat tool. So as you can see, that's got a nice shine on it. I'm going to do this 2 or 3 times just to build up the depth, and it'll give it a bit more of a raised up domed effect. So I'm just going to repeat the process, pressing my die cut onto my ink pad and then sprinkling some more embossing powder on and heating it. And as soon as I've done that a couple times more, I'll be right back. So here's our die cut with 3 layers of clear embossing powder on, and as you can see, it gives it a lot of dimension, really nice. And I'm going to attach that onto some black card. I'm going to mat that over a little bit of silver, and I've got some little tiny silver star sequins, and I'm just going to put a couple of those on for an extra bit of sparkle. And there we have another simple, stylish card. I really like the contrast of the matte background and the glossy die cut, and those little stars just highlight that silver matte that we've got around the outside. Now, our die cuts don't have to be made from plain cardstock. Maybe you've got some scraps of prints. This is a jelly print that I'd done with a feather. Maybe you've got some painted papers, some ink sprayed papers, even just offcuts of pattern scrapbook papers that you want to use up. Don't forget that we can always die cut those as well. So I'm going to create two simple cards just using this. So I'm just going to go over to my die cutting machine and cut my word out of this pattern paper, and I'll be right back. So I've die cut out of my main piece. I just need to get my die and the other bits of paper out of it. Now don't throw away the little bits that will be left, like from out of the E and the O. We're going to need those. So make sure you're over your desk when you do this so you don't drop any of those little bits on the floor. So we've got our patterned word, that's going to be going onto another card. And I need these little bits out of the die. Even the little teeny tiny bits, like this bit here, that is out of the E. And there's a tiny little bit out of the loop of the H as well. So first of all, I'm going to stick this piece of paper on, as we're using the negative for this card. And this is just a 6 by 4 inch card blank, this one is. I've trimmed my printed paper to fit. And just using a little bit of glue and the tweezers, I find this might be the easiest way. We can just lay back in those pieces. And if you're unsure where they fit, just refer to the piece that you've cut out so that you can see which bit goes where. And I find the easiest way here is to put a little bit of glue directly onto the card rather than onto the tiny pieces of paper that we've got. So that's our first card. Now, if you're using something heavier than this print is actually on some quite lightweight paper, which is why I've stuck it directly down onto the card blank. But say this was printed onto a piece of cardstock that had got a little bit more body to it. You could raise this up on 3D foam and you would get a nice sort of shadow effect through that die cut word there. But as I say, this was, I thought was going to be a little bit too floppy and too much trouble to try and mount this all up around the word, so it was easier just to stick this directly down onto the card blank. Now, for our second part, because obviously we don't want to waste the word that we've cut out, I've just got a die cut rectangle of white card that I'm going to mat onto my blank. Just using a bit of 3D foam. Popping that on there. And then I'm just going to attach that with my glue. And again, I think we'll just finish this with a couple of sequins. You could always use some little flat black gems, something like that. I'm just sort of looking through my stash and seeing what have I got that matches. And I have these sequins in lovely shades of blues and greens, and they coordinate really nicely. Need a little bit more glue on that one. So there we have it, 2 cards from one die cut there. And for this card, I've decided I want to use my die cut to bridge a gap. I'm going to cut a channel out of the front of this card. This is a landscape card, 6x4. I've cut a piece of acetate, just slightly smaller than 6x4, and I'm going to line that inside the front cover. And I've got some shades of blue to create a blue ombre effect, which will show through the acetate. But to begin with, I want to cut out an inch wide strip from the centre of here. Now, as my card is 4 inches deep, I'm going to measure down 1.5 inches and measure up 1.5 inches and just remove that 1 inch strip in the middle. So I'm just going to go to my guillotine and do that, and I'll be right back. As you can see here, I've just trimmed away an inch piece out of the middle, and I'm going to attach my piece of acetate inside the front cover so that we've got a transparent section in the middle. Now you probably can do that with glue. It tends to slip and slide about, so I'm just going to use some double-sided tape. And just a couple of strips, top and bottom of each section there, will be more than enough. Remove the backing. And placing our little piece of acetate, and I've cut that just a couple of millimeters smaller than 6x4, just so it doesn't bind up on that fold. So lining that up on there, I'm going to fold this top piece over and press it down. And I'm going to attach this bottom piece, lining it up with the edges of the back of the card that I can see. And press that down. And say we've created a card blank now with a gap in the middle that we can see through. I've cut 4 strips here to fit. These are 1.5 inches wide by just under 4 inches long, and I'm going to stick those down. I'm just going to use glue to stick those down. And now I'm going to attach our die cut word, just using the tops and the bottoms where they just overlap the white cardstock that we've already got. And here we have a really nice classy card with an ombre effect through the centre. So recapping on what we've done, we've got our beautiful ombre acetate window. We've got our 2-for-1 using a patterned or printed paper. We've triple embossed our die cut for a beautiful raised and glossy effect there. We've got a rainbow drop shadow for a really stylish sort of retro style card. We've got our sort of quite neutral fake embossed effect by using the same colour as on our background. And then our simple just ombre die cuts layered up onto a coloured card stock. All done with one simple die, and none of them took any time at all. So I hope that you've perhaps picked up a few ideas, been inspired to just go and grab a few of those offcuts, those little random pieces that you've been hanging on to, and actually just put them to really good use. You can imagine if you'd got a Christmas themed word, something like peace or joy, how many really simple Christmas designs could you do in no time at all. So thanks for joining me again today. Hope you enjoyed this. As always, if you did, please leave me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back again soon with another project for you. But for now, that's all. Bye.